Greetings and salutations, everyone. I hope everyone is doing well today. Today, I have a lineup of terrifying encounters to share with you. Before we get into those, a couple links I'd like to share. As you know, I rely on Patreon, PayPal, and my merch to help the channel to continue to grow and go. Those links are in the description below. Also, Dogman Frightening Encounters, Volume 1, 2, and 3, the audiobook versions. They were written and researched by Tom Lyons, narrated and produced by me, Jeffrey Nadolny. They are available on Audible, Amazon, and iTunes. The links to those are also in the description as well. Now, everyone, I have taken far too much of your time. Let's get on with today's upload. Shall we? Today's first part of the upload. Hello, everyone. My name is Sarah, and I am from the upper part of Michigan. I love to hike, camp, along with hunting. One day, my stepdad and I went hunting for some deer or whatnot. Once we get to the location where we wanted to hunt, we got out our packs and unpacked our gear we had brought from the house. I smelled something foul, like a pile of garbage or rotting fish mixed with really bad body odor. We ignored it as we thought it was something dead lying nearby. We made our way through the woods onto a beaten-down path we had found close by. Once we got quite far, we stopped and had a couple of minutes break. After we took a small break, we heard a huge crack in the background behind some large bushes. My dad instinctively grabbed his sidearm from his holster, and that was when whatever it was growled at us and sped off. Whatever it was sounded huge and fast. We, of course, ignored it, hiked on even faster to where we needed to go. Once we got there, we set up camp and started to make lunch. We had hot dog and a side of salad as we ate. I started to smell that putrid smell again, which also made me vomit my food back up. I had to pee, so I went off. Being near dusk, I grabbed a flashlight and a hunting knife we had brought with us. I squatted down as I was about to pee until I saw something move in the distance. I shined my flashlight at whatever it was moving. I could see orange or red glowing eyes shining. As I started to become frightened, I pulled my pants up and ran back to camp. I told my dad what had happened, and he went to check it out. After a couple of minutes, I heard a loud scream in the direction my dad walked off. He ran back, panicking, really bad, with blood oozing from his knee. I asked what happened, but he stayed in silent mode. He packed up our stuff as fast as he could, and we walked fast back to his truck. About halfway to the truck, we heard this loud shriek, growl, something I've never heard before. At that moment, we started to run as fast as we could, nearly tripping over every root, until we finally made it back to the truck, packed everything back in the truck, and sped off. My stepdad never spoke of what he saw that night. As for his knee, it looked mangled, almost like it got smashed by a rock or a large stick. Today's second encounter. Here's my experience. My family comes from the Dominican Republic, and you don't usually hear a lot of supernatural stuff going around. We have a low belief on the supernatural. A little background about my dad. He's 6'1", very athletic, loves fishing. Until one night, my dad came across a Dogman. Him and 4 of his friends went out night fishing at a rural location where one side of the road is full of sugarcane and the other side is where you can see the ocean, and if you're not careful, you can fall and die. My dad says that everything was quiet, to be a zone where you could hear a lot of dogs barking and animals walking. He said he had a strong gut feeling, like somebody was heartily looking at him. He looks around everywhere and sees nothing. About 10 minutes into the rural area, they had to stop because of the tires of the Jeep had blown off because of sharp pieces of glass. All of his friends get out and check around to see if anything is out of place. His friend says the nearest gas station is about 7 miles away. It's really dark. They go on foot. Decide to take a motorcycle they mounted on the back of the Jeep. My dad said that halfway back to the gas station, he sees this black figure running through the sugar cane like nothing, and he starts to think it's his imagination, so he leaves it alone. About 5 minutes after, his friend stops the motorcycle and shuts the engine and tells my dad to be quiet because there's a black figure on 4 legs. He first thought it was a dog, but once he noticed it had long human-looking legs, he knew it would be dangerous to be close to it. My dad says the creature, or thing, got onto 2 legs and looked straight at them for what felt like an eternity. He describes it as 7 to 8 feet tall, muscular, with gray dark fur, with a long-looking German Shepherd snout with sharp teeth from the beginning to the end of its snout. He says it had a humanoid-looking face and icy blue eyes. But the most creepy part about this encounter was the deep, chill growl and the deep, creepy howl before jumping back into the sugarcane. My dad says he spent a week with high fevers and chills every time a dog howl at night after that encounter. My dad has never been fishing at night again. Today's third part of the upload. This happened in July of this year in the northeastern part of Arizona, south of the Native American reservation. I've never had any experience with skinwalkers, but honestly, after reading about them, I believe maybe I saw one. There's one time I went camping with 2 buddies, but neither of them are really outdoorsy type. I was just kind of getting them into the whole camping hunting scene. Now I love hiking, exploring, more like because I hate just walking a trail. You're seeing nothing new, so I took my 2 friends out a ways. We got 2 miles from camp when they just wanted to go back. I said fine and showed them where to go on my phone and made a waypoint on the other little GPS thing to follow. I wanted to keep going, so I did by myself. They wanted the pistol I had for safety reasons, leaving me to walk alone in the forest with water and nothing else. No big deal, I thought. I found a steep hillside with rocks all the way down when I was about 5 miles from camp and decided to go down it. I followed the path at the bottom of this thing, which was at this point just a dry riverbed. I walked down and it gets steeper as I went further south. When I crossed a certain point, something just felt wrong. I started trying to look around for anything, but there was a huge log across 2 hillsides, and when I crouched down to crawl under it, it felt like I was being watched. I look to my left and I don't see anything. I look back around to see anything in the middle of the riverbed. Then I look up to the right. This huge black canine. Too small to be a bear, but it looked like a wolf on steroids. This dog creature and I stared at each other for what felt like an hour, but I know it couldn't have been any more than 10 seconds. Every passing moment made that feeling of dread worse. I moved backwards to get the hell out of there, and when I moved, the wolf thing just booked into the forest further from camp. In hindsight, this thing was moving faster than any dog I had ever seen. The walk back was eerie. I didn't feel as much as I was being watched, as to just the feeling of it will catch me eventually. And that's why I don't ever hike alone anymore. Today's fourth part of the upload. In July of 2013, I was on a summer trip that included a service portion on the Navajo Res, Navajo, New Mexico, for a specific location. Where we were staying was this really remote patch of land that could only be accessed by this really sketchy piece of road that had no electricity. My group had the luxury of either camping in a tent or under a tarp, and of course, I got stuck under the tarp, sleeping on the outside of the group. One night there was a pretty bad storm, and we were all invited to sleep in a hogan, a traditional Navajo home, with the mother and son we were staying with. Of course, on a dark and stormy night, the mother decides to tell us all of her Skinwalker stories, of which there were many. I can't remember all of them, as it was a few months ago, but here is what I know. The story of the origin of skinwalkers that she told us was long ago. Navajo wore pelts, like in the movies, to hunt animal. The pelts and the entire getup, face paint, etc., gave people the power to transform into an animal-like state. As with all types of power, some use it for good, others for evil. So skinwalkers were born. She said that skinwalkers look like big wolves or dogs in animal state and sound like horses running. She said something about how they cannot be shot just normally because bullets will deflect. She also said that a few may have been arrested by Navajo police because of skinwalkers. Most Navajo do not drive at night. Skinwalkers can also use your biological matter and spit on the ground or hair from a brush to cast bad magic on you. This is also a reason why Navajo people keep their Navajo names a secret. Now for the stories. The first one I remember was when she was a child. One night she was thirsty, so she got up to get some water. She went to the kitchen to get a glass of water, and through the window she saw red eyes. Freezes. She doesn't remember any more. In the morning she wakes up and walks to the kitchen and sees her glass of water sitting on the counter. She tells her mother, and they go outside to see fresh dirt has been dug up, and her mother confirms that it was a skinwalker. When she was older, she joined the U.S. Navy. She was stationed in Spain when a man came up to her and asked if she was Navajo and from the res. Apparently he was as well. But she didn't know this man. He kept persisting and pestering her. But she knew something was up when he didn't recognize the scent of burning cedar wood, something very familiar to most Navajo people. They throw cedar chips on fires, and it smells awesome. She thinks it may have been some sort of skinwalker. As an adult, she works as an art teacher at a school. One day, a student of hers comes up to her with concern. She was dating a boy she really liked, but her grandmother, a skinwalker, did not like him, and she was afraid of what she could do. Later, she showed up pregnant. I think I remember something about the grandmother killing the fetus. Back when she was younger, her sister also had an encounter. One night she left her bedroom window open. Suddenly she felt frozen in her bed. She then felt someone breathing down the back of her neck, but she couldn't do anything because the skinwalker had her frozen in place. The son also had a story. He was camping with his friend. Where were they camping? Out in the yard. It was the middle of the night when he decides to use the outhouse, or they might have had gone together, I don't remember. As he was near the outhouse, a pack of skinwalker or wolves drop in. He remembers them making noises on the outhouse door. Another time, a pack decided to go right through the property while a group such as ours was there. Luckily, I didn't see anything, but I was scared as hell from the rest of that time on, as if rattlesnakes and black widows weren't scary enough. There were definitely more stories that I don't remember. Today's fifth encounter. A little bit of background. My dad is full-blooded Navajo from northern Arizona. My mom is white. I grew up in SoCal, but grew up going to the res every year and eventually moved and worked there. I'm no expert on the skinwalker or anything, but I'd like to share this. My first experience I had was on one of the first solo trips without my parents, out to a ranch on the res. Went with my cousin and a few friends. The ranch is pretty much in the middle of nowhere, the nearest people being at least 10 miles away. So you're pretty much on your own. Our first night out there, we arrived at around 2 in the morning and there was no moon, pitch black. So we had a hard time finding our hogan, traditional octagon-shaped Navajo home. We decided just to camp near the cattle corral, which we found, set up our tents, and knocked out until sunlight came up. When I woke up, I took a little walk around the campsite and found coyote tracks encircled our camp, and actually got pretty close to our tents and campfire, which was pretty weird, and a bad sign for several reasons. The rest of the day went on without incident. Woke up, cooked breakfast, explored the north rim of the Grand Canyon on the res side, and checked out the old hogans in the area. Stayed up practically late at night. We had been exploring at night, four-wheeling on some off-road trails. It was around 2 or 3 in the morning. We were driving up a rocky road that went into a small canyon. So there are some hillsides that are pretty high and steep on both sides. I was standing in the back of the truck with a spotlight. That's when I saw it. The best way to describe what I saw was a visual effect of when you're standing in a room and someone behind you takes your picture with a flash. There's that brief instant in which everything lit up behind me, but it was dull, orange, reddish light. I turned around towards where it had come from and shined the light around, but there was nothing there whatsoever, just a bunch of rock. We thought it was weird, but kept going. Once on the top of the hill, we stopped and looked around and noticed another weird light again. But this time, it was far away, at least several miles. It was the same color and looked like a muzzle flash from a gun. I waited and waited to hear the gunshot, thinking it was people like us shooting at night, but it never came. Then we saw another flash, but this time it was several miles to the west and a bit closer. Then another, and another, closer and closer, all within a few minutes. We decided this was a little weird, and without talking about it, turned around and went to the hogan. We didn't really talk about the lights for some reason. We all settled down in the hogan. There's myself, my cousin, and my 2 white friends. We talked for a while, and it was the moment when everyone stops talking and everyone is just about to fall asleep when it happens. My friend shot up out of bed and screamed, "What the fuck was that?" They had reason to be alarmed. We were very far from anyone else, and they knew it. It's extremely quiet out there, pretty much a deafening silence, and you can hear when vehicles are approaching. I got out of bed and grabbed the shotgun. I told my cousin to grab his rifle, walked to the door, motioned for him to come over, and said, "You go left, I'll go right." I'm not really sure why, but I wasn't scared, despite the obvious weirdness of what was going on. I ripped the door open and we both slipped out of the door, one after another, and swept the area. Looked everywhere we could, and went to the truck and grabbed the spotlight and swept the area. Nothing. No footprints, no animals, or anything. We decided to send a message and shoot a few rounds off to scare whatever it was away. I think we were all kinds of worried, but eventually we went back into the hogan, settled back down, kind of joking about it to calm our nerves, eventually falling asleep. But I hid my nervousness and my heart was still racing. It wasn't until everyone was quiet and asleep that I noticed the thumping. I heard it faintly through the rock walls, and when I put my ear to the wall, I heard it a lot better. It was a very rhythmic thumping sound, something very heavy and timed the same every single thump. It sounded as if it was coming through the rock table that the hogan sits on. I tried to rationalize it and told myself it was just cows or somehow managed to fall asleep. I woke up the next morning and we went and checked on the cows, which were about 10 miles away on the ranch. and hadn't been anywhere near our hogan that night. Several days later, I told my aunt what had happened. They told me that one of my Navajo grandmas, who lived alone and out in the middle of nowhere, had a weird thing happen as well. The same night we had our door kicked, someone had knocked on her door in the middle of the night. When she opened it, there was nobody there. My aunts think it was a skinwalker who was messing with myself and my cousins because we were mixed. I had some weird stuff happen when I was working there as an EMT as well. Today's final encounter. A Siusla Woods Cougar Skinwalker. We had an encounter here that was like a cougar stalking us, but in a very human way. It was walking at one point on its hind legs, same kind calling my friend from the trees by name in a lady's voice. He did not go in, but came back to the fire from pissing and was scared. We were camped and staying the night, so we all stayed near the fire. Then all slept together by it all night, not in our tents. It was a buggy mosquito night as well, which sucked, and we got bit up. I saw the damn cougar all night in the trees watching us. None of us walked away from the fire to piss after that, just turned and pissed into a sort of ditch right nearby where everyone could see. I'm always armed when camping, but I was very afraid. The thing didn't seem natural like a predator should be. This was on the res in the peninsula in Washington State. I've seen many cougar here, but that one was off somehow. Clever. It didn't hide really, just watched us. It didn't attack, run away, or anything. It walked on its back legs from one big tree to another like a person, then ran up the tree. They are scary enough naturally. To see one acting so strangely was a very bad feeling. I don't think it really was a cougar, plus my friend. He said it said his name, not like growling or yelling, but in a regular woman's voice. He was scared shitless as well. He slept in the middle of us all night. All right, guys. That's it for the upload. Sorry, I am completely exhausted. I'm recording this Monday, early nighttime, around 6:40. My daughter started homeschooling today. I didn't sleep very well on Sunday. I was up most of the night getting her Chromebook set up and everything, making sure everything was perfect for her first day of homeschooling, which just drains me. It really, a lot of times I sound tired. I am, because first I'm dealing with my illness. Second, I'm a single dad, and now my daughter is homeschooled by me. So I'm just constantly busy and just being pulled at every angle, I guess. So I apologize for sounding very tired today. The funny thing, though, when I was reading the second to last encounter, the one near the Grand Canyon, I remember there was a Brady Bunch episode when I was growing up. It was not new. It was, I was born in 76, so I think the Brady Bunch had been off at that time. But I saw this when I was probably 10. But I remember the kids were in the Grand Canyon and they ran into a Navajo boy. And the mention of Skinwalker was in that show. And it's kind of crazy because I had not thought about that in years, probably not ever. But I distinctly remember that episode when this guy was talking about his experience near the Grand Canyon. So I don't know, just a weird little thing that popped in my head, as normal weird stuff always does. But anyway, I want to thank everybody for always listening and always supporting this channel. You guys really are the channel. So with that, I want to bid y'all farewell and see ya!